everybody. Welcome to a new episode of 19 O'Clock News featuring me, That Kodocha Girl, and
Me, Mahou Shoujo M / Daily Kodocha.
so we took a break last month, which was honestly much needed for the both of us, and I feel like I'm really ready to jump back into Kodocha lore. So I'm
I
excited. But
know.
the thing is, I'm always deep in Kodocha lore on
I know, yeah,
Twitter.
you're always up to your eyeballs on Kodocha, and I'm just starting fights about Fuka. So
Love it.
it's kind of our baseline. But yeah, I mean, hello, dear listeners. We did 18 episodes with no breaks. Once a month. So for about a year and a half, we were kind of in a constant cycle of planning the next episode, researching and prepping for it, recording it, editing it, and kind of having this sort of cycle going along. And it's been, really lovely and rewarding, and we're so happy that people have joined us and listen. But we just needed a break, just a small baby break after a year and a half of no stops.
Oh
Especially
yeah,
since
definitely.
we also have had consistent daily Kodocha and That Kodocha Girl content going out that whole time as well. So, woo, we're back. We're ready. Let's go.
All right, so today we will be talking about Kodocha episode 19, which is funny because we were just talking about it earlier about how we're talking about episode 19 on 19 o'clock news as it's our 19th episode of the podcast. Like, what are the odds? We did not
And
plan
we did
this.
not. I promise we did not plan this. It was just a happy accident. And yeah, I just think it's a funny little number coincidence. But we with last episode we talked about episode 18 with Sweet Fridge Feet, and which was really great. But it was like, oh man, this arc really is so good. We want to kind of keep talking about it, or like see it all the way through, if that makes sense. Since we've touched on this arc, parts of it, quite a bit on the series already.
Oh yeah, definitely. And this I was telling him the other day how I was like, I'm definitely gonna cry on this episode.
Oh,
Because it has the episode we're talking about today has one of my favorite scenes in the entire series. And it's yeah, I was watching it before, in preparation for the episode today. And yeah, I cried. I cried a
yeah.
lot.
I cried too. Watching it in Japanese, and then I was like, okay, I've watched it once. When I watched again in English, it's probably not going to hit quite the same since I just watched this episode 20 minutes ago. And the answer is no. I cried both times. So I just
Same.
it just gets you. In the manga too. It's just whew, it's some good stuff. So
Yeah, I mean, talk about amazing writing like that.
hmm
It just
hmm
it hits so hard. And I feel like
yes.
for a lot of people, I'm sure that people can relate to that, what's going on, what we'll be talking about. But anyways, so the episode starts with Keiko, Sana's real mother. She's coming
hmm
to the Kurata household, and the tension is pretty high.
I
So
I
we don't
also wrote that even with like Misako's insane Maro hat, that that silence as the hat is spinning around and Keiko and Misako are looking at each other, whew, very intense.
I love how it's like this amazing combination of like a really tense dramatic moment, but then you have the Morrow thing and it's like it kind of adds a little comedy to it as well. It's like it's something that I feel like no other show, like in live action shows too, it just can't pull off as well as Kodocha.
Oh, I completely agree. It's such a thing that I think it's so unique to Kodocha, part of its flavor, I think.
Hmm.
Is being able to balance that perfectly. And I know we say that all the time, but it doesn't stop being true, everybody. We're just right about this. So, yes, very tense. Anyways, continue. I'm sorry. I feel like I interrupted you with that.
Oh no, you're fine. But I was gonna say, I think at this point we don't really know that she's Sana's real mom until she brings up the three moles, which was funny because that scene, I think it was in the previous episode where Sana mentions her three moles, her birthmark, and it's something that you just think is like a funny moment, but it's actually relevant to the plot.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, you're right. And I did find it interesting from a translation perspective, how that scene was kind of handled each time, where Misako's like she knows about your 3 stars, between the translations, because in Japanese it's like she knows about your 3 stars and kind of like uses the euphemism. But I thought it was kind of funny that in the English version they were just like, nah, read her for filth, reveal her big secret in front of a classmate. Like she knows about the moles on your butt. Um, okay. And then in the manga, I thought it was funny. They called it an Orion's belt.
Hmm.
About your Orion's belt. And I went and looked at the original translation just out of curiosity to see if they did mention or call it Orion's belt. They don't. It's like San Hoshi, like just literally 3 stars. So
That's
um
interesting.
it was a choice. It wasn't a bad choice. Orion's belt has 3 stars. Um, I get
There you
it.
go.
But just thought it was interesting.
One difference I noticed in this scene, so Misako's giving Keiko a talking to, and honestly, it's
Mm-hmm.
one of my favorite Misako moments because like she's just so like I just love how composed she is during this scene.
Mm-hmm.
And one difference I noticed between the manga and the anime, the English dub in particular, was they kind of have a little moment of comedy in the anime that I don't think was in the manga. So she's telling Keiko, even dogs and cats will take care of their babies. And in the anime,
Mm.
she also says, and chipmunks, and then Maru falls down off of her,
Yeah.
which that was not in the manga.
No, it was not. And I did think it was funny in the English version too. They don't reference dogs or cats at all. They just say chipmunks. Even
Yeah.
chipmunks know that.
Mhm.
So I wonder if it was a syllable issue or something, but I thought it was funny that that was the one that they were like, gotta keep this one. Um, I guess because they felt like it made the gag make sense,
Now, there
but
was
yeah.
one moment in the English dub that, like, it was funny, but then, because I watched the English and then I watched the Japanese, and it was funny in the English, but then when I watched the Japanese, I just felt like it worked better and it kind of made the scene kind of weird and awkward in the English. But
Mm,
there's a part during that scene after Misaka slaps Keiko and she's on the floor and she's like, all right, it's up to Sana now. And she walks away. And then Babbitt in the English version it just straight up calls her a bitch.
yeah.
Did you
I
catch
also
that?
I did, and I was surprised, and I actually rewound it because I was like, did I hear that
I did
correctly? Because we
too.
don't
Oh my
we
gosh.
don't do a ton of like if there is swearing, I feel like in dubbed anime, it's typically like we have certain words, right, that like are commonly used. Like damn is used pretty regularly. It's a bastard is another one. But like we don't get a lot of bitch shit. We don't get a lot of additional other swearing. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
it sounded out of place. I
it
agree.
did.
And my note on Babbitt for this episode is just I violently hate Babbitt in this episode.
It's funny. I didn't
Ugh.
write that, but I did actually write WTF.
I know, like he's just, and God love him. I do think that Chris does a good job voicing Babbitt in the English version, but he was so much louder in English than he was in Japanese in this episode. Like I could tolerate Japanese Babbitt this time around. Like I wasn't happy about it. I was still like, why are you here? Um, as which is a question I often ask in the more dramatic moments where Babbitt interjects.
Mhm.
But in English, I was like, I need you to be quiet. Like, please be silent. You are driving me insane.
Yeah, I
Um,
actually for the first time I felt that way too. 'Cause I have this thing I do where when I'm watching Kodocha, like, sometimes the Babbitt moments make me laugh, but most of the time I'm pretty good at just kind of tuning him out. But
fair.
for this one, it was like that comment that he made, like, I can't believe I never caught
Um,
that before. Like, yeah, I had to rewind it too. It was like,
it's like,
what?
yeah, it was weird. It was weird.
Yeah,
Um, and on the note of the slap itself, I just kind of wanted to offer another, like a viewer perspective that is not me. Because I've actually had people message me on Twitter about the slap before, which I find really interesting. That there are people who think Misako was way out of line for doing that and kind of view Keiko as a victim, which she is, but at the same time, it's not like Misako knows that. She kind of moves forward with the information that she has. Um,
exactly. And I want to add to that too.
mm,
You know, I think they're both, Keiko's definitely a victim, especially in the manga when we know
yes.
how it really happened.
And I have a note on the uncle stuff later too. I did do some research into that because I know we've talked about it before. But
Oh yeah. But you have to really understand it from Misako's perspective too. She felt very passionate about that, specifically because the odds of her having a child herself were very, very low. I believe it was
mhm,
5%.
yeah,
Um, so of course she's going to feel particular resentment towards somebody that would just abandon their child,
absolutely.
despite the circumstances, which at this point, of course, she didn't know why
Yeah,
that was happening. But I understand it, and I also feel like that scene wouldn't be as powerful without that. But I do understand, criticisms about it. Oh, she went too far with
absolutely.
that. But
Yeah, it
I see I really see it from all the perspectives. But if we're looking at it from a storytelling standpoint, I definitely think this adds to the intensity of that scene.
I agree. And it's one of those things where, like, the conversation where this came up, where somebody was messaging me, was like, we were talking about, if they were going to do a Kodocha reboot, like, what do you think wouldn't make it into a Kodocha reboot? And they cited this scene, and I disagree. It is, and I found it interesting that of all of the Kodocha things, to find controversial, like, this was kind of the thing. I just thought it was interesting because it's not really how I've perceived the scene. But I also like this, I think, is also part of a broader conversation about how nuance is a little bit is not handled. I mean, fans discussing nuance of character actions has changed a lot, particularly in the last few years. Characters aren't really allowed to make mistakes, or be fully human.
Mhm.
I've noticed, which is why a Kodocha reboot would be like so phenomenal, but also would be so deeply frustrating. um,
Yeah, it would be difficult. Because
People writing off Akito and Misako as problematic after like 5 episodes without learning their whole stories, etc.
yes, and I have received comments on YouTube that dismiss Aikido all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I've actually brought it up on Twitter too, like, oh, somebody
Mm,
wrote this, and I just feel like, yeah, I just feel like there's a fine line between, having a character like make a mistake and then grow from that mistake, and finding things offensive. I don't know if I'm making any sense.
yeah.
But like you just have to I just feel like sometimes people are too quick to get offended by things. And I feel like anyone is justified in feeling that way. Like if you don't like it, you don't have to watch it, and that's cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But
absolutely.
I just feel like sometimes people are too quick to write it off and not give it a proper chance or understanding. And as someone who, I've studied psychology and I've even studied a little bit of therapy.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like that's something that people need to, I guess, take a step back and kind of pay more attention to the fine details. And I'm not just saying that in a sense of like fictional stories, like paying attention to that. But I think it also translates into a broader picture. I just feel like this mentality expands into real life, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I actually completely agree. And I see it a lot, particularly in online spaces, but I sort of hear of it in offline spaces too. Just we're a lot less, I don't know, forgiving feels like the wrong word. Because absolutely like accountability is a thing and we
Mhm.
should acknowledge with a critical eye when people make mistakes, but at the same time, there's not a lot of room for people to make up for it. And it seems like a lot of times, both fictionally and not, there's an attitude of sort of like, well, this is who you are now.
Mhm.
And there is no moving past this. And so it's like, okay, so what do you want a person to do then?
Exactly. Like
Um,
there's a few things that like just are completely unforgivable. But it's again, it's with a relationship between people. If you decide that you can't tolerate this from someone, you do have the right to, say that, I just can't handle this, I need to walk away from this. But at the same time, we should give someone the opportunity to, let their actions change. Everybody can say sorry, I'm sorry I
mhm,
did this, but ultimately it's the actions. But again, it's also someone's choice, if they don't want to entertain that. But I personally think that it's always good to give someone a second chance, as long as you're comfortable with that.
mhm. I completely agree. And it obviously like that's okay, everybody. Like that's not a everybody's situations are different. And that's not a blanket statement. It's just a thought, you know. Because I do sometimes get so frustrated sometimes online when you try to be like, and you should give people second chances, and then you get like a slew of comments that are just like, but you didn't account for my individual situation. I'm like, I didn't know your individual situation. How could I have possibly accounted for that? So like just that little footnote.
Like I said, everybody's different. Everybody comes from a different background, different cultures. And, I think the most important thing, and the one thing I feel like that everybody has to learn in their life is to always take a step back and consider something from someone else's perspective, and always think about, how they could perceive this. And I just think people would be happier if we took more time to understand each other and find common ground. But that's my TED talk today. Thank you for coming.
Yes, I think that makes perfect sense. Yeah, I just think there's a lot going on psychologically in this episode. It's very complex. And
Mhm.
so I think it deserves to be looked at deeply.
I
And
agree.
it's obvious, like I can understand why the slap is somewhat controversial, but I also think it does need to be
Yep,
looked
I
at.
100% agree.
Yeah. Yeah. So just thought that was interesting. But ugh, this episode just hurts so much because you can really see Misako is trying really hard not to like influence Sana and let her come to her own decision. But that
Mhm.
distance is still so hard to watch, even if like just that lack of communication there is so difficult
Oh
as a
yeah,
viewer. Hurts my little heart.
I know. And it's like you can tell that Sana doesn't want to leave her mom, and she doesn't want
Hmm.
Sana to leave either. And there's like this communication gap between them, but at the end of the day, they both want the same thing. And them both coming to the realization that they do is just, it's one of the best scenes in the whole series.
Mm, it really is. And I'm so excited to talk about like the conversations that happen at the end of this episode. Um, because of exactly that.
Mhm.
Just, it's just jam packed, just powerful moment after powerful moment. Like,
It
bring your
really
tissues,
is.
boys and girls. Like, whew, it's a lot. There you go.
It's such a heavy episode, like because
It
I feel
really
like
is.
there's so many like topics that you can connect to, psychology. You can even connect a little bit to politics, and it's just like it's a lot.
Hmm. I agree. Yeah, there's a lot.
But on a lighter note, we do have one of my favorite funny moments in this series. Uh, I just adore the scene when Sana, she talks about her birthday. She's like, when's my actual birthday?
Oh,
Um,
yes.
and like she's like, my name would be Sam if I was born on the 6th. And like and then it's like the first time we see Akito like really break that stoic persona of
Hmm.
his. And I love it. It's such a
It's
adorable moment.
It's so good. I also just love too. I think that Shizue Oda does such a freaking phenomenal job in the scene as a voice actress in the Japanese version.
Yes, she
With like
does.
she can just rapid fire off like the most random English phrases, and she does it a little bit in other episodes too. And we'll see Sana do that sometimes in the manga. But like it's just so funny. Um, like it's just so good. Hello, my name is Sam. Thank you very much. It's so funny.
I do. There is one difference here too. In the English dub, she says something about I get peanut butter stuck to the roof of my mouth.
She sure does. I actually, that was a note I have when I was watching the English version is I'm like, Laura understands every single level that this episode has.
She
Like,
really
there is
did.
not a comedic miss in this episode. There's not a dramatic miss in this episode. Like, every line is perfectly intoned. Like, she just nailed it.
Hmm.
Um, there's not enough good words for Laura Bailey. She's just phenomenal. She's so good in the show. It's stupid. Like
I'd say she's probably my favorite female voice actor.
I deservedly so. If I had to think about that for me, the first person who comes to mind for me is Caitlin Glass, if only because she has so much range, it is comical.
Yeah, she's a good one.
She can play anything. I do believe this. And not all the same way either. Like particularly with some of the like voice actors that have been doing this for a really long time, like since the 90s and stuff, like they kind of have an anime voice that they apply to this all characters. And
Hmm.
so like, and I'm not gonna talk trash. I'm not gonna name who I think does this. But like you'll be like, oh yeah, that's so and so because they're using the same voice they use for everything. But like Caitlin Glass, Laura Bailey, they have just so many different things that they do, and I find it very impressive and cool. So,
Hmm.
uh, is it time to go to the theme park?
Well, actually, on the theme park note, I did
Mm.
want to mention how in the manga, it's so weird how in the early volumes they refer to Misako as Mariko, and then all of a
Ugh.
sudden, Sana's sister shows up and she's Mariko, and then she's Mama becomes Misako. It's like,
Yeah.
what?
It's I'm never not going to be super annoyed about this because like it is like I totally get like there's a lot of different ways you can read kanji, like there's a lot of different ways you can pronounce kanji, but it feels like something that they like that was like a typo or something on accident in volume 1 that they were just like, "Oh, we're just going to have to like commit to this typo." And then they can't anymore, and so they abruptly switch it. But it still makes me mad
Yeah.
because like you can see it. It's spelled like I've got Japanese copies. Like it is spelled perfectly plainly at the beginning of the book. Character introductions like this is Mama Misako Karada, and it says Misako. Like there's no other way to read it. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, that's
Ugh,
weird.
it's bizarre.
Oh, it annoys me a lot too. But
Mm.
yes, let's go to the theme
Anyway,
park.
theme park. Sweet. I just think it's funny that Sweet Akito he hates heights, and then canonically Obana sends him to 2 theme parks over the course of 10 volumes, and he just continues to suffer because he loves Sana so much. What a good boy! And I also, oh my gosh, Sana's disguise in the anime. It just I love it so much, and especially when she's like, it just doesn't seem like enough. Um, like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It seems I don't think this is gonna cut it. It just really tickled me. She's so over the top, and I love it.
I know. But
So
she
good.
kills it. She nails that disguise though. She looks really
Hmm.
cute.
She really does. I think so too. I'm like, oh, Sana with glasses? You could just wear those. Working for
Hmm.
you, girly. And I think it's fun too that those, I feel like the bigger glasses have kind of like they went out of and now are back
Oh
um
yeah.
in our little like 90s fashion moment that's happening here in 2024. Just tickles me. But I love her clothes. Everybody's clothes because this is still when everybody got to wear different things. Um
Oh
Rip.
yeah, and then we just went to like the straight sauna shirt for like
Yeah.
20 episodes in a row.
Yeah. Like 90 episodes in a row. Nah, I'm kidding. Because then we had the school uniforms.
Yeah,
It's
and
fine.
that
I'm
I'm sure
fine.
that made it easier too on
Yeah.
the the team
Hmm.
studio.
Yes, it did. And I can acknowledge that and also acknowledge that I wish that they had worn different clothes every episode, but it's fine. In any
We still
case,
have the manga,
we do. We do. Sana gets her cute outfits and her cute hairstyles. Um,
which honestly, her hairstyles in the manga are the best.
They really are. Oh my gosh, she can. I love it. I love a ponytail Sana moment specifically. I don't know why. Anytime they've got her into like a high pony, I'm like, oh, so cute.
Yes, I actually love when they put Fuka's hair up too. Like she looks really cute with her little
What?
ponytail.
Oh, I'm like, you about to start me on something. Fuka's ponytail is too cute. She is just minding her own business, being adorable. How do people hate her? I'm fine.
I get the hate because I was a hater at one point too, but
I too was a hater once, but now I
once
love her.
you, yeah, same. Once you get, this deep into Kodocha lore, it's like, yeah, that was just a phase.
Yeah. I stand by what I've said before about Fuka, which is one, I mean, in the you get more of her character in the manga and more of how like gracefully she handles everything in
Hmm.
the manga. And I do think the anime kind of did her dirty.
I
Um,
agree.
it's a lot harder to forgive her and move on. Because the anime just makes the junior high years harder in some ways than they
Yeah,
already are.
I
So,
think because, you have the whole New York thing and then she's
mhm,
gone and it gets stretched out and then you have filler and then it doesn't
mhm.
actually end how it's supposed to and it's a whole
Hmm.
thing. And I'll never ever forgive them for that. But it's whatever. I still love the anime despite its flaws.
Me too. I'd prefer to have it than not, especially because in a roundabout way, it's what brought me to the manga, which is my true love. So I can't hold too much against it, but I will whenever people come at me with some Fuka hate, I'm like, just tell me you haven't read the manga. Um,
It's brutal.
'Cause- nah. I'm I'm like I'm thinking it so loud most people can probably hear it anyway. But
It's all right. So, you
anyway,
want to talk about the scene? You know the scene
now I'm wondering, do I know the scene? Which scene?
when Keiko asked Sana to come and live with her.
Yes. Oof. Yeah. I really love like the finality of that. And I actually have a small translation note from the manga. But yeah, I love that like you and I will not be seeing each other again. Just like she's not leaving any room for like a question there. Like she's made up her mind. She's made a decision. And I think she made a very mature decision considering her age.
Oh yeah, I actually wrote that in my notes. Like that's for an 11-year-old, that's a very mature way to say that. Like just a straight up like no fear, just
Hmm.
saying how she feels. And I feel like that says a lot considering how much we saw her struggling in the
Mm-hmm.
previous episodes, especially, when she opens up to Akito on the field trip and,
Mm-hmm.
the book comes out and we see how much pain that's causing her.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I feel like at that moment, she's finally, accepted how she feels and she's not afraid to show that regardless of how it's going to make Keiko feel or, even her mom, because, at this point, she's still
Mm-hmm.
worried about how her mom's thinking about all of this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very firm way of putting things. And so I do have a note on the manga. I looked at the Japanese version just because I was curious about like how the wording was different. And there are very few times that things are kind of bolded or enlarged in the text of Kodocha. But when they are, like it's kind of time to pay attention. It's important.
Hmm.
And this is a phrase that part of it is bolded. When she's saying no to Keiko, it's sore wa nai desu ne dekimasen. So the nai is like dark, bolded, enlarged, like very big font. And so it's basically like if you translate that, that's not possible. I can't do it. And the not being the like, I'm not doing that is what would be bolded in English. And I think that they kind of softened it a bit in the English translation from Tokyo Pop. They add sort of her being like, I'm sorry, but I can't see you that way. She doesn't say, I'm sorry, but like, she's just like, that's not possible. I can't do it. You know,
Hmm.
you and I will not be seeing each other again. She's very firm. And yeah, I'm like, she doesn't have to be. I'm like, on some levels, I'm like, she doesn't really have to be nice to Keiko about it or worry about Keiko's feelings. I mean, she will because she's Sana,
Hmm.
but like she doesn't owe this woman anything other than, and I think she gives her a lot as it is in terms of her time, her emotional energy, and then that thank you that I'm sure we're about to get into.
Yeah.
um
I always go back to this episode if I'm ever really struggling emotionally because, I can get really depressed sometimes and I feel like, why am I still here? Like, what am I doing? I have a
mhm,
lot of feelings with that sometimes. Like, I feel like I'm not going forward with a purpose. And whenever I watch this episode, it always makes me reflect on what I've done in my life and who I am for the people around me and how I know that I make the lives of my friends and family better by being around. And
mhm,
it always makes me just feel grateful for what I have when I watch this episode because, there's a world, I guess if you believe in like alternate timelines, like there's a
mhm.
timeline where I wasn't born, and things could be different. The world would be totally different. And I feel like this applies to everyone, we're here. I believe we're here for a reason. And this episode always make brings me comfort to know that like I'm here for a reason and I feel like I try to make the lives of the people around me better and they help me to feel better too. And I wouldn't be who I am without all of that. And I'm just really grateful to have been given the gift of life. Even though sometimes it's hard, but
Yeah,
this episode always reminds me of, the reasons why I'm here.
yeah, gotta go on living, right?
Exactly.
um yeah, I agree. I know we kind of go, we say this a lot, but it's like there's so many important messages to Kadocha. But that go on living refrain, I think, is very critical. And I think that this is another foundational block in that message, this
Oh yeah.
episode.
Oh my
And
gosh. I'm
and
tearing up
I
a bit.
I know we do. It's uh
Are you trying just not to cry like me?
yep.
Yeah. Oh, it's so bad because
Just a
like
little.
I didn't even think about that actually.
Yeah,
To go on living the
that is our refrain. It is our theme. And this I think is part of that. But yeah, I agree. It is we are all lucky and we're all like I something I say a lot in my personal life and something that I believe is that we're the sum of all the people that we've met and that have poured into us, right? And so
Mhm.
like I am not M without my friendship with Ari, right?
Mhm.
Um I'm not M without my friendships with Mateo, Retronova, like Jacob, Fridge Feet, like all of the lovely people that we get to know and interact with in the server and in other spaces online, in addition to the people in my personal life in the real world, so to speak. But like all of these people who have poured into me have made me who I am. And so I'm so thankful that we are all here together and that we are all doing the hard work of going on living.
Yeah, you put it
Didn't
so well.
succeed.
You put it
Did
so
not
well.
succeed. Crying.
Ooh, it's all
Basically,
right.
I love you. That's it. It's fine.
These are happy tears, just so
Hmm.
everybody knows.
Yeah, just really love my friends. It's fine. I'm fine.
Man, this show, this
This Joe.
this manga is just oh my
Yeah,
gosh. It's just it's the gift that keeps on giving. It really is.
it truly is. And yeah, this moment is so powerful. Somebody who I don't know if you know them, but I don't know them, posted the clip from this on Twitter recently. And I was like, oh, how timely. We are about to talk about this scene.
Yeah,
Um,
I just started to follow them. I can't remember their username right now, but yeah,
yeah, they've
I
been
think
posting some Kodocha clips. I'm like, oh, hello.
yeah, I think they're new to the series. So if you're listening to us,
Oh,
hello. I cannot remember your name, but
be
I
our
know I
friend.
follow you, and I know I've been liking like almost every single one of your posts that I see. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for doing that.
Spreading the word of our
Yeah,
beloved Kodocha.
exactly. Yeah. On the note of that particular scene, I did think it was interesting that in the anime they kind of cut out Tsuyoshi and Akito's aside, where Tsuyoshi is like, "Are those tears acting?" And Akito's like, "No, because it would be prettier if she was."
Yeah,
Um,
they cut that out.
they did, and I didn't miss it. I was kind of okay with that particular cut, though I do think it does kind of bring things around it would bring things around full circle to the conversation that they had Akito and Sana had a few episodes before about like sometimes I think you're acting, and she's
Yeah.
like nobody could act all the time like that. So I think it's a nice kind of button on that conversation, but it I didn't miss it in the anime.
Yeah, it wasn't super necessary, but it is a nice little detail.
Mm-hmm.
I actually wrote a note about that in both the manga and the anime version, which the manga gives us more context into what Akito's probably thinking during this scene. But,
Mm-hmm.
I would love to know as he's watching this moment unfold, like what's going through his mind.
Mm-hmm.
Because, he thinks very deeply about, Sana's emotions and how she presents herself to
Mm-hmm.
her friends and everyone else. And I just, I'd love to know like what exactly is running through his mind as he's watching this.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. I think for me, like if I had to hazard a guess without putting a ton of character brain thought into it, I think he's probably thinking about the gazebo and the I gave birth to you because I love you
Hmm.
scene, because that is something that over the course of, this particular arc with the mother that he's come back around to thinking about like God, how hard must it have been for her to say that, to deliver that line when she doesn't know, um, or like when she doesn't have her birth mother, you know?
I'd also like to say that it's possible because, he's thinking about there was that line where I think it's in episode 18, where he's like, I wonder what Sana was thinking when she said those things to me in the gazebo. Um, and I just wonder
Mm.
if this moment here, when he's watching Sana confront Keiko, if he's reflecting on himself as well. He's thinking it's kind of, yeah, it's coming full circle for him there.
Mm-hmm.
And he's, how do I word this? I just get the sense that he's almost feeling like, I don't know how to word this. I feel like at that moment he's really come to terms with his struggle. Accepting the fact that he was brought into the world because, early on he very much had a lot of self-hatred.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at that moment too, not only is Sana really confronting that aspect of her life, I honestly think that internally Akito's actually going through the same thing. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think like that's something that's about Sana and Akito and their relationship is that they kind of are foils over the course of the series in that uh their struggles kind of become the other struggles at different point. Like they trade learning opportunities, they trade struggles, they trade issues,
Hmm.
throughout the series. And so this feels like something where like it's kind of a mirror, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, at like a I don't know, it's cyclical, it's reflective as they both learn these lessons in different ways.
And I love how it's so subtle. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like in a lot of storytelling, like sometimes things are just, said out loud. With
Mm-hmm.
Kodocha, there's a lot of reading between the lines. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if you watch the series or read the series once, you are not going to catch every single thing
Mm-hmm.
because it's like what we're talking about right now. I actually never really thought about this before. But there's just so many little subtle moments where there are things being said without things actually being said, and
Mm.
it just makes it that much better.
I completely agree. There's always something more to be found in this series, which is why, all these years later, we're both still talking about it.
Yep.
Like, because every time I read it, every time I watch an episode, like I pick up something new. And so yes, I completely agree. It's I'm like, you could just watch it or read it once. Your life won't be as full as if you dive into it like us. But
I completely agree. Yeah.
I'm kidding a little bit, but like not really. Join us in our Kodocha pit. It's very warm and safe down here. There's a lot of
Yes.
crying.
There is. Really.
But other than that, it's so much fun. Please join us. Are you we ready to move into the back at the house?
Yeah, of course. I didn't really have a lot of notes on this. I almost
I
feel like
didn't.
we did talk about it early on in the episode today too.
We did. It's yeah, I don't know. I guess I kind of wanted to reiterate how much I love that moment where Misako is just like apologizing for putting Sana through it, but also like knowing kind of in her gut that that was kind of what needed to happen.
Hmm.
And explaining that really it was all a very elaborate ruse so that she could stake her claim, basically,
Yeah.
um, on her child. And I love that, Sana is my daughter
Oh my
moment.
gosh.
It's
That
so
line
oof,
makes me tear up every time.
every
Like I'm
time.
tearing up again
Yeah,
now.
same. Like, oh, I've got that clipped somewhere. I'll probably post it as we get closer to this episode releasing. But
Yeah, it's so good. And
Yeah,
it's like, oh my God. It's so true though. Like,
it
she
is.
really is.
Yeah, exactly. In every way. So it's oof. It's just it's beautiful. And it's so nice too that like this it's closure, I think, for both of them. Having this question answered. It's also probably not a bad segue into complaining about how the anime is like, we see your closure, but we would like to reopen these wounds and reintroduce Keiko and Mariko for a one-off episode.
A
Um,
really lame filler episode, I might add.
it's ugh, it's like all this suffering and for what? You and
I
I will not
actually,
be seeing each other again. 5 episodes later.
right.
Are you kidding me? Like 3 episodes
Uh,
later. Like it's not even that. How many is it? I gotta look now. Now I'm mad. Hold on.
I did want to bring up on an unrelated note another odd coincidence of our episode timing. In the United States this month, it'll be Mother's Day, which is kind of appropriate for the episode, I think.
That's fair. Well, yeah. I mean, we'll put it out on the 7th. Unless, do we want to put it out on the 19th? Oh no, Mother's Day's on the 12th this year.
Oh, I was kind of hoping it'd
Boo.
be on, but I just think it's kind of interesting. And then the same month,
We can release
it's.
it whenever we want. We're the bosses. I mean,
I mean, I'd rather just do it on the 7th like we always do, but I do think
fair
it's
enough.
kind of interesting how a few days later it's going to be Mother's Day, and the episode is very mother centric.
That it is. That it is. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. So we Sana helps find Mariko 4 episodes after this. I'm fine. I'm
You
fine.
know,
Um,
spoiler alert for our listeners. So, I've planned on doing and this summer is going to be so busy for me, related to the TKG channel, but like,
mhm.
I planned on doing a full review of Kodocha Series 1 since I did one for Series 2 for, people who are new to the series so they can like come on YouTube and watch a review. So I plan on rewatching the whole series one over the summer and making a review video for that. And I'm honestly dreading certain filler episodes. That's one of them. And of course, the ending to series one. But
Yep.
it's gonna be
Godspeed.
worth it. But yeah, this is one of the episodes I'm dreading to rewatch. So yeah,
Ugh. Uh, mm-hmm.
it's all good.
Yeah. Good episode. The only other thing note I had for this episode is I'm sorry. It's another just little kanji fun fact for everybody, which is, obviously Sana's name comes from March 7th, Sangatsu Nanako. But another fun fact is that the saw that they use to spell Sana it's a kanji that means like silk or thread, and it is the same saw that spells Misako. It is not uncommon in Japan to take a kanji that's been used in a family member's name when you're naming your child as kind of an honor name.
That's really
So
neat,
I
actually.
isn't it, but I also very much love this Misako energy of being like, I'm gonna name my baby after me. Um, like a little bit. It's very much giving like Lorelai Gilmore naming her daughter Lorelai Gilmore energy. Like, and I kind of love it. So there you go. Another little kanji fun fact for you. But that also does sort of lead me to be like, how did they misread, misspell, mistranslate Misako's name
Oh
when it's the
yeah.
same Sa that is in Sana? You got that one right. I'm fine.
Ugh,
It's
well, we'll
okay.
just have to live with it until maybe we get a reprint, I guess.
I know.
Which honestly, I think it'll happen one day, but anytime soon, I have no idea. Maybe I'm
Yeah.
being too optimistic. I don't know, but
I'm like, I
we'll
want
see.
it. I'm just gonna keep harassing Seven Seas. Um, like I'm like, I will say for us as a Kodocha fandom, we are very focused. Like it takes a long-standing, very patient kind of love for a series like this. So I think if we just keep poking at them
I really
one
wish
day,
they'd bring more Obana titles in
oh, I would
English.
know. I was thinking about that too. I'm like, I'd love to read anything else. Let's be honest. You
I
know,
mean,
a,
all of
a partner release in the US,
it's
people would
so
be
good.
messed up. Oh my gosh, right?
If you haven't, if anybody listening hasn't read Partner, I highly recommend it. There is a fan translation that you can find online. It is fantastic.
It's
I've
so
read a little
good.
bit of her other series, Honey Bitter, which was actually a few of the
Yeah.
characters were featured in the Kodocha sequel, Deep Clear.
Hmm.
And it was okay. I haven't really been able to get into it, but it's definitely not something that I'm like, oh, this is terrible. But I feel like it's gonna be a slow burn type of series.
Mm,
But that one's, I don't think that one's in English either, other than fan
no,
translations.
it is not. I don't think anything got an official translation in English other than Kodocha. At least that's true for the US. UK fam, if you have a different if you guys got something we didn't get, please let me know. Because
Also,
I'm gonna need that for science.
when I was doing research for a video once, I believe most of her titles are actually translated into Italian.
Yeah,
I'd have
Matteo was
to
telling us
check.
that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Says I think he said definitely partner and on what's that one called? Andande? It's a music term. That one.
yeah. Mhm.
That one. I think is also he said was translated into Italian. I'm not sure if Deep Clear was. We definitely talked about it when we had him as a guest. So yeah, no, Italy. I don't want to be like Italy gets everything, but Italy gets everything Obama-ish that we don't get. So
Yeah, very interesting.
yes, well, I think we probably could have gotten more. Um, we just I don't know, we were unlucky with how the licenses were handled in the US, I think. Like if
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if there would have been a better case scenario for Kodocha, honestly. Like, I don't know if Viz would have done a better job translating it or keeping it in print. Probably not. Like, I don't know if, if like, I don't know, Pioneer or somebody else had gotten the anime, if that would have been different. I don't know. We'll never know. But
Yeah.
I do think both of
I
those were kind of fumbled a little bit in how they were released, so they never built up the kind of fan base that would have brought more Obana titles to the US,
for sure.
in
And
my
I mean,
opinion.
on that note, we just need more shoujo to be brought over. It's just my
That's fair.
opinion.
No, I do not disagree. I'm totally with you there. Like there's fantastic shoujo being written and released all the time. How much of it makes it over here? Different question.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm really excited. I was actually telling in this the other night, but like I've decided because, and it's partly because of how successful I've been with the channel and on Twitter and just like kind of coming back into the anime community because I was really, I was kind of apart from it for a long time. Um, and I've just decided, like, you know what? I'm an adult. I think I'm gonna maybe start collecting shoujo manga when I can here and there,
yes.
and
Yes.
make it a new hobby because
Do it.
I feel like it's, and it sounds so weird to say this, and maybe it's kind of silly, but I just feel like it's really important, especially to have. I think it's really important that, especially women and girls, have, a space for their own comics and stories. And I feel like I want to support that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we could. Oh man, this is a whole other episode's worth of can of worms
Right?
to discuss on how like and like we see these. I mean, like you can just literally go to the comments of any Colleen's Manga Rex YouTube video and watch this play out in real time about how men very rarely will respond to shojo series, which is why I think it's so interesting that of our guests we've had on this podcast, they've been overwhelmingly male,
Hmm.
which I find interesting that Kodocha seems to be an exception to this, where there do seem to be quite a few male fans of what is definitely a shoujo series.
I
Um,
think part of it has to do with especially the anime.
mm-hmm.
It's very comedy centric. And I feel like with some guys, like if something is more romance heavy, I feel like guys just don't, in general, I just feel like they don't really respond to that as well. And not because they wouldn't enjoy it, but because of the way it's presented, if that makes sense.
Maybe. I don't know.
It's hard to
I'm
say
like,
because I don't know how the
everybody's
male brain functions.
I know. I'm like, I could make generalizations all day long, but I don't know how useful that would be. I
Exactly. Like I have that generalization, but it's just like I don't really know how it works, so how am I supposed to speak on it really?
no, definitely. But even then, I almost wonder, sometimes it feels like these romance equals shoujo, which one is not necessarily true across the board. Or like shoujo series are dumb, bad, boring, blah, 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 whatever, etc. These are kind of amplified within like other fandoms, like typically shonen fandoms. So like I will say it does seem like a lot of like at least our friends who are male who love Kodocha aren't totally in those circles as much.
Hmm.
Like they're probably not. It seems like if you are already part of that part of the anime community where you're getting that like constantly reinforced that like this isn't for you, then like you might have a harder time making space for it. I don't know.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah,
In any
it's
case.
really interesting to think about it because there really is a lot there's a lot of things that influence, what somebody's going to read and not read, your social circle, your just what you like in general, what's
Hmm.
marketed to you. And something I feel like it honestly makes me sad in a way because I feel like those, some of and yeah, it is some shonen circles. And don't get me wrong, I love shonen just as much as I love shoujo. I love shoujo a little bit more though, but um, I just feel like anime and manga as as a whole is so there's so much variety, so much depth, and a lot of the stories that we have they're so well written.
Hmm.
And I feel like as a fan of those things, if you're just dismissing it because it looks too girly for me, oh it looks too boyish for me, or putting some stereotype or label on it, you're doing
Hmm.
yourself a disservice, I think.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. Don't judge a book by its cover in real time.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and so I'm always delighted when, we see people kind of going across either aisle to experience the fullness of what Japan has to export to us more fully.
Oh yeah,
Um,
I mean, it's honestly, it's just a wonderful thing to be into. And I am so thankful that every day that I get to be a part of this community. And I've made so many new friends. Because I've always loved manga and anime. I got into it when I was about 12 years old. And it's kind of been one of those things that I've been on and off about it. And when I
mhm,
started my channel, it's just really just I guess that particular hyperfixation and hobbies just really kicked off with me for the last year or so.
mhm,
Um, and it's just I've been exposed to all these different things through, our community and doing research on my own. And it's just
mhm.
been amazing because I feel like I belong to this community, and it's not something that I really have strongly felt about any kind of fandom type thing, as I've been in gaming fandoms before, and it just never really was so, I guess, positive
Yeah,
before.
yeah, yeah. I definitely think I think I've been very lucky in terms of like I really haven't had to interact very much with the more unpleasant side of the animanga community. Very lucky that everybody that I get to associate with, be mutuals with, etc., are all really lovely people. And it's been really nice. It's also just been nice to get kind of like back in the loop because I was out for so long. I missed so many series.
I'm right there with
Um,
you. Yeah.
and so it's been really fun to kind of come back and be like, oh, this thing that people are talking about, I've started reading it or watching it. I'm like, oh, this kind of kicks ass. I really like this a lot. That's been really fun. Getting to kind of broaden my horizons a bit. Um,
Same. Yeah, it's been
so,
great. I actually, I guess before we wrap this up, I guess I'll mention another series that like I got into recently.
mm,
Oh my God, and I love it so far. And I
what
saw
was
that
it?
they're coming out with the English release of the manga soon, which I actually pre-ordered. I'm so excited.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
it's called it's got a kind of a funny title. My Love Story with Yamada, I think is it's called.
Yes. Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
my
yeah.
God, it's so cute. I love
Okay,
it.
I have wanted because I when that was they did a season of anime, right?
Yeah, it
I
has
think.
one season. I think it came out last year.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah, I'm like I was seeing a lot of buzz around that when the anime aired and I was like, "Ooh, it's been on my to read and to watch list since then." So, noted. Your enjoyment is the only endorsement I need. I will get into that now.
Yeah, I've only read, I think, the equivalent of volume one online of that. I
That's
haven't watched
fine.
the anime yet, but it's I need to figure out. I don't know if it's streaming anywhere right now. Probably Crunchyroll or something, but I have
Yeah.
feelings about Crunchyroll I'm not going to touch on in this
Oh yeah.
podcast,
Let's
but
be I'm like let's we gotta be careful.
I'm gonna be positive and just talk about the series that I like. But yeah, it's my God, it's so adorable. And you will love this, but I saw that it gets a
Uh-huh.
little spicy later.
Uh I don't want to be like, yeah, that's why it's on my list, but like
Yeah, I love that. I
I'm
love
like,
how it kind
yeah,
of it starts out being like kind of just like wholesome and just kind of goofy, and then I'm like I saw this panel on Twitter from it where it was like a little spicy, and I'm like, it
I
really
saw,
goes that way? Oh my gosh.
you know, I'm like, and I love like a shoujo level of like spice, which is really just seasoning. A lot of times, like you're not going to see there's not going to be anything really explicit about it, but it's just like, yay, grown-ups are getting to be grown-ups. Like, don't get me wrong, I love reading romance series about like the youths. They warm my little heart, but sometimes I'm just like, yes, adults, hooray.
Yeah,
So
I feel the same
looking
way
forward to
because
that. Yeah.
it's like it's like I told you before, like it just sucks being a 28-year-old teenage girl sometimes.
It's fair. Oh,
Well, we got off topic on this episode, but that's fine.
what? This never happens. Not to us. Anyway,
Did you have anything else to add about the episode, or
I don't
anything that we
think
talked about?
so. No, I don't, nothing on the episode. I don't even think I have any like housekeeping or anything. I think we're back. You know, leave us comments, tell us things. We like to hear from you.
Yeah, and if
Join us in
you
Babbitt's house for
yeah, and if you
daily
have
nonsense.
any, of course, and if you have any opinions that you'd like to share with the world, feel free to submit a little thing to our guest form, which will be in the description below. Uh, Anything Kodocha related, which is usually what we'll talk about, but we can always, talk about other anime topics as well, just as long as Kodocha's the focus.
Absolutely. And it'd be fun to get to talk with and meet more fans. So great. Well, this was a good one. Ari, it's good to be back. I missed you.
I miss you too.
Babe, stop. Okay. Alrighty. Have a great week, everybody. Bye.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to 19 O'Clock News, a Kodocha podcast.
19 O'Clock News is hosted by That Kodocha Girl and Mahou Shoujo M.
We love making new friends. Feel free to join us in the Kodocha Discord under Kodocha_media.
19 O'Clock News is not affiliated with any current or previous rights holders to Kodomo no Omocha by Miho Obana.